Hello, friends. Welcome to Akul Mac Live, and I'm Chandrakant. Today, we will discuss about a great development in UK, where the Prime Minister of United Kingdom has announced increase in taxes to handle the crisis which has been created by pandemic. This is a big step, and that has made a lot of people unhappy. I'll be joined by a very distinguished business personality from UK to discuss this point. Before we welcome our guest, I have to tell you that we are live in this show, and you can use the social media chat function to communicate with us. You have an observation, a suggestion, a comment, or even a question. All that will be displayed live on the screen along with your name. We will actually address your query straight away. So let me welcome my guest today. His name is Mr. Mike Bradley, and he is joining us from UK. He is the Chief Strategy Officer of Scale Up Arena. So without further ado, let's welcome him. Hello, Mike. How are you doing today? Welcome to the show.
I'm very good. I'm very good. Thank you very much, Chandra. Yes, I'm very good. Thank you. And enjoying the sunshine, which I understand is not the case in Delhi today.
Well, Mike, it's raining here, but I think it's a big news. Is one of the trending items globally that the Prime Minister of UK, of your country, has gotten approval and increased the taxes on the corporates. And I personally believe that this is not the best method to handle a crisis. But I think you are the countryman. Your opinion counts. What is your view on this?
Yeah, well, I think there's an increase in dividend tax, and there's also a planned increase in what they call national insurance to fund the extra demands on social care. And yes, I think it's a very interesting approach. Not sure that it's one that's universally accepted. Our own local MP has also given. He voted against the introduction of this increase, and has made some very valid points. I tend to be of the same disposition as yourself, feeling that we have to look, particularly in this post-pandemic world, at the whole purpose and approach that we have to public sector funding and the services and how that is done. And just applying a blanket demand for extra tax is not necessarily the correct way to plug the holes and to ensure that in the future, the delivery mechanism is of fit for the future purpose, if you like.
Well, Mike, I think usually when the world goes through crisis, each country reacts in a different way. But the increase in taxes is a very unpopular decision by any government for last 2,000 years. Even if there was a monarchy and the king increases the tax because if there is a famine somewhere, the king immediately becomes very unpopular. So in a democratic setup, if you increase the tax, I think it's a very unpopular decision, and I'm sure Mr. Johnson knows about this, and still he has taken such a decision. You have any thought process around it? Why he has taken this decision?
No, I don't know what his personal reason was. What I do think is it's a potentially dangerous approach because the two key parties we have in the UK, one is particularly known for increasing spending by raising taxes, and the Conservative mantra is around being a low tax government and commitments that were made to not increasing taxes. And yes, the pandemic potentially had changed the dynamic. That I think is part of the reason that the change has been made, or this approach has been suggested. However, I think it was fair to say that before looking to increase receipts, there was a good need to look at the efficiency and the effectiveness of existing spending. And it's rather strange that the social care story is one that has been used, because social care in and of itself is means tested. Okay, so it calls into question, if you can have means testing, say, in social care, why can't you have means testing on health benefits or on other services, child benefits, etc.? And these things have been proposed in the past by the Conservative Party, but were shouted down by the Socialist Party, saying actually these benefits should be universal. But the opposing point of view would say, well, actually, why do you need a universal benefit if somebody's a millionaire? They don't necessarily need this benefit. Therefore, it would not be sensible use of public money to give them money that they don't really need. And the whole contentious point around this is that they're saying, well, actually, this social care is means tested, but other forms of public services are universally applied. And if we, for example, means tested other services, like we do social care, then actually the demand for tax may decrease rather than increase. So I think one of the first things that we can look at is thinking that maybe now's the time to look at the fair apportionment and allocation of cost based upon the need, so that the public sector services become a safety net in some cases. Obviously, things like street lighting, we all need street lighting. So street lighting has to be done through the public sector, but perhaps other on-demand services should be means tested so that the increase in burden of tax should not increase. In addition to which, obviously, the pandemic has shot a lot of local shops. You know, local traders have gone out of business, local businesses have gone, restaurants have gone. And so these are decreasing the tax receipts that the council has, which means there's two options. Either, again, the council says, because we can, we will increase the tax burden and say we want more from those who've got money. Or we take a fresh approach and say, well, actually, let's look at the services we're delivering and either deliver more with less, which is, of course, what the private sector has been doing for decades, or at the very least say, well, actually, what actually needs to be delivered through the public sector versus what could be delivered through the private sector. And we then redress that balance so that the burden of taxation is less, not increased. And of course, there's also the consideration, which is the pandemic has adversely affected a lot of the businesses that are continuing and haven't had to close. And is it fair to burden these businesses with yet more cost and yet more penalties for success at a time when some of those are all also hanging on by a thread? So I think it's not an appropriate time to demand more tax. It's an appropriate time to relook at how we're spending, making sure it's fit for purpose, lean enough for purpose, delivering more with less, giving more to the taxpayers, be they private sector corporates or ordinary tax-paying employees.
Well, Mike, I think your and my thoughts are totally aligned. In fact, the Indian government is also going through the same phase as many other governments, including all governments. All people are facing hardships right now because of lack of business. So the India has taken this in a different approach. They have actually created almost like $1 trillion project, and it is meant for public people partnership. They want to construct a lot of infrastructure. So if citizens have some experience and money with them to build even small infrastructure that will be taken over by the government. So this is the new project they have started just around 10 days back, where and it's called India Infra Pipeline Project. It's a huge thing, and across the length and breadth of such a large country, there'll be multiple airports, there'll be roads, railroads, solar power plants. I think there is a huge list of infrastructure that they want to be built, operate, and transfer. And this is almost like $1 trillion new project which the government has launched. So I think that is a better approach, where you are actually paying for and driving the economy by actually people producing some work rather than taxing, because there is no money for tax. I mean, there is no money for survival. So how you can pay tax? So I think that is where the challenge is, Mike.
I think you're right. I think there are infrastructure projects that need to be developed, but I think we again need to be very careful which infrastructure projects we pin our future hat on. Is it depend, and it's going to depend by region, it's going to depend by country, but should our money therefore be going on improving, I don't know, railroads infrastructure, when perhaps what we really need is to improve the internet superhighway, because more and more business is going to be transacted online. So where does the investment go? And I think we've got to be very, very sure that we know exactly where we should be spending the money for the future strategy. Solar, wind farms. My personal view is we should not be spending more on transport infrastructure. We should be spending more on ensuring that people can work from wherever they happen to live efficiently and effectively, utilizing technology, utilizing digital skills and digital capability. And I don't think that's in any country that is by any means universal right now. And that possibly should be where the infrastructure spending is going. But doing that through private sector, yes. I think we've also got to ensure that that is done in a way that benefits not just the multinationals and the big companies, but benefits the SMEs who can actually supply those services.
Well, I think you are the citizen of UK, and hope your voice is reaching the government over there. But I think you're making a lot of sense. I think there is one more thing I'd like to share from my side, is that in order to support the SMEs, the Indian government has opened up with Singapore, where for the micropayments, the Pay Now platform of Singapore is now linked with the micropayment platform of India, which is called BHIM, BHIM. So if I have to make a payment to a merchant or my vendor in the Singapore, I can just transfer money using BHIM platform. And that has been a big thing, because if I have to send money outside the country, there are big regulations. So for small micropayments, for services, I think up to $100, it's a good thing, because if I have to pay a Singaporean company, I can engage with them, which was not possible so far. So if UK government also follow suit and open up their micropayment platform with India, I think there is a lot of business waiting to happen, because the biggest challenge is how do you collect your payments, and how do you engage with Indian merchants? How do you get paid out of India? So I think this is sure. Your views, Mike.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this whole concept of how SMEs trade with each other needs to be simplified, because once again, at the moment, the system benefits the multinationals. It doesn't make it easy enough for the SMEs, because the SMEs are busy running and doing their own core business. They shouldn't have to wade into tons of red tape and bureaucracy in order to trade with each other. So I agree with the whole idea of micropayments and that sort of thing. What I think is important, though, is that each national country has a mechanism that they support and provide a platform to interact with these different country platforms. That I think would be a very useful infrastructure project to invest in, because I think that would open up a lot more opportunities for sure. I think there's always a risk of offshoring what principally will be core to the national economy. And I think there is a risk that it depends on, if I'm hearing you correctly, that Singapore is running this platform and the Indian government are utilizing that platform. What would be interesting, particularly with all the tech skills and knowledge that you have in India, why that platform hasn't been created within India and then linked on a backbone level with international platforms such as the Singapore one.
Well, Mike, let me correct that perception. Basically, we have the world's biggest digital platform because of the population, sheer numbers that the Indians have.
Yep.
And that platform is called Beam. And it is linked to the people's bank accounts using mobile phones. And sure, similar platforms are there across in different countries. And it seems that even Singapore has a similar platform. So now if I have to make a payment to the vendor that I have in Singapore, all I have to do is send him $50 on his mobile phone. It will get directly credited into his bank account. So, we can bypass all the red tapeism here. Okay. We don't have to fill 10 forms, go to bank, set up the vendor, all those things for small transactions. Is taken care. So it's basically integrating two platforms, where, bypassing the foreign exchange rules and giving benefit to small, medium enterprises, to SMEs for small payments is what the idea is, Mike.
Okay. Oh, that sounds good. Yeah. Okay. But that's really enlightened and very much a future strategy, and something I think the Indian government does very well, at least, is to look at technology that's coming through the future pipeline and adopting it, such as the way that you're embracing things like solar and embracing new ways of managing, harvesting energy sources, for example. Something I think we all need to do, and need to do with increasing regularity. India, I think, has always been ahead of the game on that. Digital education, I think, is something that India has embraced. And I think there's lessons for the rest of the world, particularly the tertiary Western economies, we've got legacy traditions that means that it takes forever to change the way the tanker is pointing. And I think we need to get much cuter about this and move much faster. And that's, again, I think, where a lot of strategy and vision needs to come from the private sector. And I don't just mean the multinationals and the big, SEMSEX companies, but from the SMEs themselves, who are the future of the economies, such that they can actually influence the way that the economy runs in the future, which is in their interests, which is 99% of the employee base. So SMEs are the driver, whichever global economy you're in, and SMEs need to be listened to. The infrastructure investments and opportunities need to reflect the SMEs' desires for future trading.
So hopefully your government is listening. Is there a possibility of overturning this particular decision of the government, or is it final? You will be taxed more. What is the situation right now?
Well, I think it sounds like this is going through, but what I think there will be a backlash, and what that hopefully, well, I've already this morning been listening to an MP who is raising this very vocally a couple of days ago in the House of Commons, basically saying, look, there are other ways to look at this. One of the statements was that a certain minister at some point said, well, we could cope with 25% less public sector employees than we currently have. And so this particular MP said, well, if that's the case, why aren't we doing it? Because that in and of itself would provide a lot of extra resource, maybe to be put into social care already. So why increase taxes if 25% of the workforce is not required? And also using things like remote working to shut down expensive public sector offices that are no longer needed, rather than funding those, keeping the lights on literally in buildings that are no longer necessary, is not good use of public funds and taxpayers' money. So, that I think the voices are being heard, and voices will increase with their volume and velocity to ensure that things are done properly in the future, because you can't just keep putting your hand into the public pocket and saying, oh, we want more tax. Let me pick your pockets for it, whether you be a corporate or an individual.
Well, Mike, I feel sorry because of this. I think the economy is already under a lot of burden. Hopefully, the UK government finds a solution. I think we will keep following this story. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your views. Hopefully, somebody in the governance there consider your ideas, your views. And we will catch up with you next time if there are new developments in this regard. So thank you so much, Mike, for joining us.
Been a pleasure, Chandra, and have a great day. Take care. Bye.